Hey Tim, just trying out a live stream test here. I haven't done this before. I wanted to see how it works. So are you going to be up at the Chicago Aquatic Experience this weekend? Yeah, I'll be up there. Right now the plan is hopefully I'll get out there all 3 days, barring if Rico is supposed to be in town. Hopefully he'll probably take a trip over here, so we'll see if that's during or before or after the show. How's everybody doing tonight? I see a few people coming in. How's the skimmer going? Skimmer's going pretty good. I'm still doing some tweaking here and there. Because it's gravity fed, trying to get the right water level in it has been a bit of a challenge. But I'm pretty close. Like, I'm getting skimmade into the cup a little bit. There's not really much bio load yet. Alright, Tim. Well, hopefully I'll see you there. I would say I'd be wearing a t-shirt or something, but I didn't have enough time to get that stuff made up before I go out there. What other questions does everybody have tonight? The skimmer is definitely going to be something I've been working on, though. I've added a second pump to it now, which helped out quite a bit. I think at this point it's just getting the water level at the right spot. Oh yeah, Sean, how big is your system gonna be? Planning to go with something really large or something kind of medium sized? I'm interested to know. Try and give everybody a little better shot of the tank here. Trying to keep a good eye on chat here. I got it up on a laptop as well. Has anybody got any questions about my system at all? Or 220, 55 gallon fuge, 50 gallon NEM tank. Nice. I take it you're going to plumb them all together as one large system? Hey, Diver Down Reefer. How are you doing tonight? Thought I'd just kind of do a random live stream test, see how it works, talk about reefing for a bit. So the store I'm at most of the time, well, as a matter of fact, the only store I'm at right now is Reef Plus in North Aurora, Illinois. Those mangrove tanks can be interesting. I tried keeping mangroves once or twice before, and I got them growing a little bit, but I didn't have a really dedicated tank to them, which I think if you do that, you can make some really cool setups. Haha, Diver Down. How's the skimmer going? Skimmer's going all right. Here, I'll take you guys back there for a second here. Just unplug the charger. I just toyed with this skimmer, so You can see though we're getting some skimmate up to the cup. And I just played around with it so it's not producing a ton of I don't know if I'd add any mangroves to this tank or not, because I'm really digging what I got going on with all the macroalgae that's in here. I've just been letting out, most of this is all off of the rock, except for a couple of the reds back here. I've added those. I just added a second pump to the skimmer. It was only running one up until the middle of this last week. Now, I was saying a little earlier, my only challenge has just been getting this water level here adjusted properly. I think I got a couple more things I might have to do. Unfortunately, if I do the one, it'll be a big job. Oh yeah. All those white dots are all pods. I'll see here if I can. Hey Dave, how you doing? I don't think the mantis is out. Yeah, she's kind of back there. Overall though, things are looking pretty good here. Show you guys the fish here real quick. I've added a few more fish. The one bubble coral I got is jamming right now. Pretty much just all little stuff so far is all I've been adding. And now the lights are getting ready to go out on the big tank, so we'll focus on this one since I still have manual control on these lights for now. It looks so tiny. Well, when you back up and you try to look at the whole tank, yeah, they do look tiny, Dave. It's kind of hard to get a good depth perception on it from the camera, but remember this tank's 4 feet front to back, so there's a lot of space there. Looks like a fry tank. You know, I am gonna add mandarins. I am very fond of the Target mandarins. I've always been a bigger fan of those for some reason. I just think when you look at them, they got a little cooler look to them than the standard green. I gotta wait a couple more months for that though, just to make sure that everything's filling out right. Still got a little bit more in the way of equipment to add to the tank before I really start going with things. The fish I've just been kind of putting in just to get some good bio load going, and got this Midas Blenny. He's been hanging out, having a good time. He's only hiding for about a day and a half before he started coming out. Yep, that is exactly right, Rob. Taking it nice and slow. So the rock, I got it from my local fish store, and I don't know exactly which supplier he used out of Florida, but it was somebody that's doing aquaculture rock down there. I know there's only a handful of people doing it, but I'll go look at the rock again. I apologize for the water noise. It's a lot quieter than it was about an hour ago though, because I didn't have silencers on the skimmer intakes because I swapped out Venturis. But the live rock is looking really good. Wow. Just trying to focus on all the pod life in here. And actually, this is one of the more interesting macros that has come out of here. I got a book, I gotta try and ID it again. It's like a half the thickness of like Chaetomorpha, but it grows in more of a tree structure. I gotta figure out what it is. It's really cool though. There's a smaller one there growing. You can see the branching structure on it a little better. I got a ton of brown macros that you don't usually see as easily, I find. I've tried to import these before for my last tank, and a lot of them don't ship quite as well. Alright, John, I'll have to look. You always call up the store too and see if he's willing to give up his source. I know he likes holding that one pretty close because it is really nice rock that he gets. And I think there's about 3 species of Caulerpa that are coming out of it. I'm using Fritz salt right now. No, so the refuge light, I was gonna initially just run a reverse day-night cycle, but my plans for that are gonna change. I don't want to run it 24/7, and I've got something else I've been kind of working on with this system, and I'm not sure how in favor of a reverse day-night cycle I am on it yet. I want to really wait till I get an apex on here and I could really monitor the pH on a constant basis instead of just a once or twice a day test. I really want to see how much it's swinging, because there is something else I've been working on with this refuge tank. Yeah, and Dave, you got a good point there too. Some macroalgae do not like the 24/7. And really with this system, or this tank here, I've been noticing that I got some reasons I don't want to do that now. Beyond just, it's not what I normally do for the macroalgae. But I do have some pretty high flow in here too though. There's a single MP40 that I got set up for full blast in one of the random modes. I'm not sure which one, but I'm thinking eventually I will add a little bit more rock into here. I'll just get some dead rock, or maybe I'll get some more live, but I'll probably be dead rock and kind of let all this stuff spread. But I just picked up this algae, this macro here, which is a red macro that kind of iridescent blue. Yeah, I'll be interested to see how that salt works. Well, I definitely will. What state are you in, Sean, if you don't mind me asking? Trying to give a little bit of a perspective shot here with this. It's been going good though. As I said, the skimmer's doing a little bit better now. Definitely starting to get. Ah, I haven't heard that rumor before, Dave. That's an interesting one. I don't know how surprised that I wouldn't be too surprised on that though, because I could see it being just you're manufacturing it, let's make a deal to repackage it for me. Okay, Louisiana. Never been, but if I ever get down there, I'll definitely make a little announcement if I'm gonna go to check out some fish stores and stuff. He's got all the insider info. Yeah, it should be fun next week though when I go to the Chicago Aquatic Experience. I'll have a little video on that. I got a really cool video that I'm dropping tomorrow morning for Halloween, so it's a Halloween special video. So hope everybody enjoys it when it goes live tomorrow morning. Take a trip over here. Hope the video's coming in good for everybody. Thanks, Sean. I appreciate that. If there's any other stuff that I'm leaving out in this build, let me know. I'll toss it in a video, because I try to cover it all, but yeah, I try to be consistent with my videos and drop every one of them Sunday at 7. I get upset if I don't. There's a lot of stuff I gotta add though. I gotta get an apex on here. I gotta get my reef lighting. As the zip tied AI Soul is not going to be the permanent lighting solution for this tank. Thanks, Dave. Appreciate that comment. You know, I probably would have started my channel up a little earlier, but I was in school at the time, and I don't know how many people would have stuck around for 2.5 years, well, a little over 2 years before seeing water get in the tanks. It was a long journey to get to this point. But once I get an apex on here and get permanent reef lighting, I'm going to get water flow pumps in both these tanks, because right now it's just the return feeding everything. Yeah. And then eventually on there there'll be yeah, I think that's the way I'm gonna go, Sean. I've been tossing around a ton of ideas on lighting for this setup, and I think what's going to happen to start is I'm going to put 4 radions in a row across the top, because I mean there's a huge gap here. I'll kind of angle it up. I mean, it's almost 2 feet from the tank to the light rack on here. And yeah, I got good spread. Yeah. Well, I'll definitely talk about Apex a little bit more when I get it. And yeah, I think that's gonna be what happens too, Dave. I'm kind of leaning that I'm gonna start with those 4 radions and see what happens. But I'm kind of thinking 1 or 2 actinic blue T5s might be on here as well. I kind of want to piecemeal it though a little bit and check out how the radions work, because these are going to be mounted a lot higher than most people generally mount their lights. It won't be mounted like that either. Thanks, Rob. Appreciate that comment. But yeah, once I get water flow in here, which that's another topic I've been kind of bouncing back and forth, and I think we're gonna start. I'm gonna put 2 Gyre 250s on this side of the tank, one more forward and one back, and then alternate those because I'm putting 3 on my 220. 3 radions or water flow pumps. No, Dave. No issues so far. This tank has been, now I'm trying to line it up on the edge here. This tank doesn't have any movement at all. I kind of anticipated this one would be fine though, because it's not very tall. And then the big guy here, all the framing on here has been holding up great. I haven't had any issues to speak of, so if I do, everybody will be the first to know about it on the channel though, because I'll definitely make a video about it. Oh, okay. Yeah, you know, and with lighting, I mean, I tossed around a lot of different options for this, and I was looking at some more black box lights, and then, you know, with those I couldn't really do any kind of programming, not that I had to have it, but thanks, Diver. Yeah, I thought it turned out good. I cannot express the nightmare it was to try and get all the bracing attached on between the tanks. I never want to have to do that again. But I think if I was going to do this, if I ever build more aquariums and I'm going to go this size, it's going to probably be a cement build with rebar. But yeah, the lighting on a lot of this, yeah. My wife didn't believe me when I told her I was going to make her move the tank. She thought I was crazy. But you know, so far everything's been holding up pretty well. You know, there's a few things that I gotta kind of touch up, and you know, I've been watching the humidity. I've been watching really close in here. Right now we're 50% in this room. And I think, well, let's see. The highest it got today was 57%. So the humidity levels have been pretty good in here so far. It's definitely been taking a little bit of a dip now that summer has passed and it's starting to cool down outside. But yeah, I'm hoping in the next month here we get the lighting online and water flow pumps and an apex. So the current setup, this little bugger here runs about 24/7. And so I haven't oh, let me get back to this real quick. So this little guy here runs 24/7 pretty much. But I also have, walk by, almost lights out here. I also have this guy running 24/7 too. And between the dehumidifier running and the fan, it takes care of all the humidity. And matter of fact, right now, try to get this in. Right now the humidity is only 34% in the basement. So it keeps a nice balance in here between these two things, and if anything I'll get a little nicer dehumidifier, but humidity wise everything's been working good so far. I haven't noticed any kind of moisture in the plastic at all, which is definitely something I was hey Kevin, I had to try it out. I've been wanting to. I haven't had a chance. Back to water and algae and stuff. I mean, there's a little bit in here, but this light's on manual control right now with me plugging it in every day. I gotta throw a timer on it. But I think a lot of the reasons I don't have much in the way of algae issues is because of letting this go wild with light that's definitely more applicable to algae growth. So all the stuff's growing in here. I mean, this little patch of like cyano has been kind of filling out slowly, but I've seen this come and go like 3 or 4 times now, where algae grows out real heavy in here and then it'll get light again. You guys probably can't see it too well, but there's starting to get a lot of coralline growth down here, which is a really good sign for me anyways. I always see that that's a really good sign the tank's starting to mature a little bit. And as far as a UV sterilizer, I'm not, but I have been contemplating adding one, because I could pretty easily add one on here. Thanks, Kevin. I'll give you guys a hint. Tomorrow's video, that's the Halloween special, features this tank. But I'm not going to tell you what it's about. It's a quick video. You don't even get to hear me talk. But I think everyone will enjoy it. A little girl back there. Yes, those are the pods on the glass. I got a few of them. I haven't even been scraping the front glass in this. I've just been letting them grow wild. Oh yeah. Now I actually do have some iron supplements still. I gotta look. I don't think someone had given me a test kit. Or a comprehensive test kit set. I don't think it has iron in it, but yeah, that'll probably have to get checked too. I still think though that this is a really cool macro growing out here. I still have yet to identify it though. I gotta do that. Yeah, that's going all that's going good, and like I said, we'll start getting more supplementary equipment hopefully by the end of the next month. So a lot of plants will utilize iron when they grow as one of their trace elements, and that's the reason that you can so well, let me see how it's doing right now. I was kind of adjusting it earlier, but oh yeah, we're foaming up again. I'll give you guys a tour. Hopefully I don't drop the foam. But I think the skimmer's been doing pretty well. The only thing I've been kind of playing with is the water level here, and if the water level will not, I'm pretty much at the limits of how high I can get the water right now, for a couple of reasons. If you don't know, this skimmer's gravity fed and the only pumps in it are for air injection. And if you look, the drain line's right around the water level here, so if I want to get the water level higher, I'll have to try and lower the skimmer a bit. I think I can, but I gotta tear the whole thing out to do that. So that'll be a big project if that happens. I do have one now. I don't know where the little guy's hiding at. Let's see. He's somewhere in here. I did get a small blue hippo tang. Got some Bransford's gobies. Got 3 of those. the other day. So far all the fish have been doing pretty good. Everybody says that. Yeah, I know, they all look tiny. Especially when you start backing up. I mean, that I'll say the bubble coral in here, it 6 or 6. The bubble coral's actually got some pretty good size on it though. I want to say that thing's probably about 8 or 9 inches across on its widest point. Now, there's the little tang. So far so good though. But fish have been doing really good. Everything's been doing pretty good. I do have my little auto top off set up over here now. I'm interested to get it hooked up to an apex because it does puke on me about once every 2 days or a couple of times every few days. It'll go into alarm, but since I don't have an apex, I don't know what alarm it has. It's no excuse, Kevin. Just flip on record and we'll see your fishies and stuff, see what's going on. I would have set this up as a Google Hangouts, but I didn't get the option when I was setting it up. I gotta. Yeah, I gotta see, because I did watch a video on it. It said it'd be an option, but it never asked me on it, so. Ah, okay. That might be why then. So I did start this with my phone, so maybe next time I'll start it with a laptop. I got my little hawkfish here. He's been hanging out, doing all right. Overall, everything's been doing pretty good though. Does anyone have other questions on No, just the bubble. I would, but my big thing is I don't want to start buying a bunch of corals until I get all my lights. Because this guy, I mean, he's fine with the light and water flow in here, so that's why I got him. There's actually there's a baby head on the front and a baby on the back. So far the Fritz salt's been doing pretty good. I haven't had any complaints. I haven't done any water changes, but other than mixing up a 5-gallon bucket here or there, I mean, stuff seems to mix pretty clean. Usually clears up in a bucket within a few minutes of stirring it in. I haven't noticed residue on it yet, at least so far. Let's hook this back up for a minute. So no, there hasn't been any kind of residue yet on it is very dusty though. It's a very fine salt, and if you pick it up and dump it, it'll make like a little cloud and it kind of mess your nose up pretty bad. Yeah, that's the first time I've used this salt, because before this build I used the ESV salt mix, which was it was nice. It's a very expensive salt, though. It burns, Kevin. It burns. I don't think you're supposed to sniff the fritz. But just a word of caution, when I bought it, my local fish store owner told me, he said, just got to be careful when you're mixing it not to really spill it, because it is very dusty. But other than that, I mean, I have added alkalinity one time. I'm not adding calcium yet. I want to see them kind of balance a little bit better before I do that, because up until last week the calcium was off the scale. Yeah, you know, it's like any other salt too, Kevin. I mean, it seems everyone, worse than pool. The numbers seem good, but I kind of had some artificial spiking in that, because with all the quarried rock and dead rock in there and the sand, I mean, my alkalinity when I started this tank up, it was off scale, and the calcium was off scale. The alkalinity finally got down to about 8 last week. I let it keep falling because the calcium level had not started to fall at all, but it's finally down to about 480. I gotta grab a magnesium test kit and potassium test kit. So, but I figure once everything kind of drops down to some, I'd like to see it, the calcium get a little closer to 400. Let me know that we're getting some utilization. Then I'll start. Water changes. Well, what's my happy place? Usually with alkalinity, I like to keep it between like 8.3, 8.6, and the calcium at least 450. I'm trying to think where my magnesium is supposed to be. I usually go by the standard, what is it, 1350? I can't remember that one off the top of my head. I usually don't try messing with that one and making it too high, because it can start to mess with invertebrates when it gets too high. Yeah, water changes though, Rob. I got 200 gallons of water storage right now, so I can effectively do about what, 10% water changers or 15% water change, something like that. I'll probably do some eventually, but I'm gonna kind of let the system talk to me a bit, and if I think one's necessary, I'll do it. And that calcium reactor is going to be something I'll be going to. I got some 2-part for now, but that's not going to become efficient at all in the next 6 months. So it'll be a big calcium reactor. So in the meantime, I bought some Fritz 2-part, and I mean that bumped the alkalinity up when I put about a cup of it in over a little while, and bumped my alkalinity from 8.0 to 8.3. So yeah, my big thing is just that I really want to get to a calcium reactor in this system rather quickly, early next year, because my assumption is that I'll be dosing a ridiculous amount of 2-part very quickly, and I don't want to pay for that. The calcium reactor will be a lot cheaper to run. Oh, what are you saying? Careful with that Red Sea Coral Pro. Yeah, and calcium reactor brands, I've been kind of toying around with that. I know a ton of people like Geo. I kind of lean in that way right now, but I did see those Destacos, but that that one is very expensive. And my one hang up with that is, while people really like them, I saw a video where Sanjay Yoshi said he was fighting some low pH because of it. And the other issue I have is they're Belgium made, so getting parts might not be easy to get, which really makes me nervous because I like to be able to get replacement parts quickly. Yeah, I can see that too for you, Dave. Watching salt's got to be really important with some of those smaller tanks. No, it's not, Kevin. That, and I mean, just a Destaco calcium reactor for this system, I think they run about $5 grand, and that's a big chunk of money to put in on something like that. I don't know if I'm willing to go that high on a calcium reactor. In the process, are you in the process of curing your rock, Rob, or is it dead rock? Ah, okay. Yeah, that, you know, I after curing that stuff, I haven't had any kind of major algae blooms in the 720. I think the cure that I did with it worked really well, and I think I was in water for like 3 weeks, and then I did that acid bath with it, and I didn't do like heating or anything. It was in the garage, but it worked out really well. But yeah, you know, the dosing pumps, those things are really nice. I think that's probably one of the better options to go with on smaller tanks to even mediums. I kind of wish I could do it with this system, but it's just not going to be feasible. So what is the Aquaforce 1, 2, 3? Is it just calcium, alkalinity, magnesium? Is it just those three, or is it doing other trace elements? Yeah, I just saw a video. They were, I think the American Reefer channel just put a video out, and he was talking to, oh, what the heck? I can't think of the guy's name. One of the bigger, not Sanjay Yoshi. Who's the other one he hangs out with? I can't think of the name. But they were talking about the Triton method he was trying. Mike Paletta, that's who it is. Yep. Thanks, Dave. I'm bad with names, so. But he was just reviewing his Triton tank, and one of the things that he didn't like about it initially, he really swapped a lot of stuff out, because it sounded like he started the tank with all dead rock and no live rock, and he really didn't have good success with it as far as coral growth goes from the start. So it's an interesting video. It's out there. Pretty sure it's American Reefer channel. I know the guy lives out by Paletta, so he goes and visits him every now and then. But that was a really interesting video to watch on that, to see that. I was kind of surprised he didn't have good success. Yeah, I mean, calcium reactors, I've never used one before, so it'll be the first time on this tank, but I, for places like Rico and Tidal Gardens and a lot of those bigger places, that makes a lot more sense. Although I know at least, I know one coral farmer out there that does, I think he keeps one small calcium reactor on a system with SPS, but does a lot of manual 2-part dosing every day as well. So is anyone out there going to be going to the Chicago Aquatic Experience? I know Tim had said that he was going to be there. Is anyone else planning to be up there? Be next week. I know Aaron's Aquarium said he's going to be over there, so I'm hoping to meet him. Yeah, that Jason Fox video, I saw that. That was a real interesting one too. Does anyone else got questions on my system at all, or just other general reefing topics they want to talk about today? How's everybody on here feel about the use of live rock in their tanks? Do you like using it? Do you not like using it? Well, I guess, Kevin, I could I can get my magnifying glass out, hold it up. And I've always been a big proponent of live rock. Even if you don't get a lot of it, I think even a small amount helps a lot. Thanks, Ryan. Appreciate the comment. You know, that's always been a really good point with reef tanks, Mike. You know, when I worked in stores and having gone through poor experiences where my very first tank was a disaster. I was basically caught in a trap of being ripped off by somebody for years because the internet there were no forums or anything out there. You could only rely on the people at the store. So it is amazing though. There's a million different ways to run these tanks and be successful. Like I tell everyone, you know, I'll show you guys how I'm doing it, but I am by no means the only person out here who knows how to do it. There's a lot of interesting ways to do it. You always got to do your research and find out what works best for you. And Kevin, yeah, lights will be coming. I'm just waiting a little bit. I don't want my wife to hurt me. Purchasing 4 Radions to start is probably going to make her want to hurt me. I'm trying to make her happy by putting some fish in the tanks. Yeah. Yeah, so I'll talk about the heating system here, because that's I've been very happy with the heating system. I don't have an Apex on yet, so I can't monitor it all the time, but especially now with the basement's getting kept about 75 degrees. So with that temperature running down here, the heat does kick on in the tanks, but I've only ever seen it get down to 76. It kicks on, and then, you know, a while later it's back up to 77, and it holds that really well. But again, once I get an Apex on here, I'll watch it a little bit more and see what it does, and then I'm going to probably integrate the Apex in to be over temperature safety. The heat fluctuates about a degree. The Renko controller is set up to kick on as soon as it's 1 degree off. So as soon as that Renko hits 76 degrees, it kicks on to bring it back up to 77. And it doesn't overheat anything when it's going. I only get about 5 degrees of heat loss in the heat exchanger between the time the temperature it enters the tank with versus what it exits with. So that's a thing I like about it. I don't want it to overheat things. I don't think I'm going to be worried about cooling. Even in the summer down here, it's about 68 degrees in my basement. Oh, and that's, you know what, and that's, I think the sharing all this information and like what you just said there, Diver, with, you know, your tank would be that way. I mean, that's what I hope I could kind of relay through my channel and talking and going on these live streams, is to help people out and, you know, show you another method that hopefully is successful most of the time. But, you know, heck, I'm going to have failures on here periodically too. I already know it. I've had to brace the 720 gallon tank. So what is my must get coral? Oh, well, thanks Aquarium Cop. Glad everything's coming in good. My must get coral, well, I kind of got one. The bubble coral's on the must have list. I am a real big sucker though for nice Weslephilias or Trachyphilias, whatever name you want to go by with them. I gotta have some nice Weslophilia corals in here. My very first corals of all time were a bubble coral, a green Weslophilia, and a frog spawn. And I just a sucker for nice Weslephilias. They're beautiful corals. That's probably one of my absolute must-haves. Get them all. I would like to get them all, but I don't think they'll all fit. I kind of joked with my wife and I told her, you know, there's still another about 10 feet past the big tank that I could put another one in. But I got a really evil look with that. Clams, yes. There will be clams. No, oh, okay, Kevin, you were asking someone else. Yeah, I will get clams in here. So, I always like keeping them. I had a tank dedicated to them before, and I really loved having them. And I really want to keep them again in this tank. Plus, I think I'll be able to enjoy them a lot better, too, because with the walking platform above the back of the tanks, I could take the tops off and get that look down, which is the best way to view clams. Must have fish. Ooh. That's a tough one there, because I think probably one of my top ones I want right now is probably to get some nice flasher wrasses in there. Those guys always intrigue me quite a bit. But I don't have a single favorite fish either. And that's hopefully the thing, Kevin, is that the majority of the fish that I'd like to keep, I can put them in one of these two tanks. Because, you know, that was the big drive for having two displays. I wanted one with all the stuff that's not reef safe or sketchy reef safe, like angels. You will never see an angelfish in this tank. I don't trust those things. I guess maybe like the what are they, the little marks and stuff. That I never liked those quite as much though. Do I ever? I actually get yelled at a lot for being down here too long. The shark idea has come up, but I don't know if I will actually do it. There's only one species of shark I would be interested in, and it'd probably be an epaulet shark because they stay fairly small. But even then, I'm gonna have puffers and triggers, and I don't want them to get, you know, picked at. No kitchen down here yet. I'm probably going to catch a lot of flack for it, but I'll probably get like a mini fridge freezer for all my fish food. Oh, yeah, acro-wise, I've got a lot of friends with a lot of them. I'm pretty open to anything though, just because as long as it's got some cool colors on it, and even some of the ones that are, you know, like even Green Valley Slimer and stuff, I'm fine with getting some of that in here just to get something going. I can always remove it, but I mean, some of those ones like that Jason Fox Home Record's really nice, although I'm not going to start with that. Well, I do have some seats lined up in my one easy chair, so it's kind of like a bed, Kevin. I could potentially sleep down here. I think if that happens, though, it might be my wife kicking me out, kicking me downstairs. I'm an engineer in the wireless telecommunications industry. But my main passion is I keep coming back to aquariums. I've had them for so long, and I've always had a lot more fun with them. You already wrecked. Hold on. You already wrecked your home with that 1,600 gallon system. What do you mean, Mike? Well, it's not, no, there will not be fish in the refugium. That what I can answer. That's the last one. A lot of the reason I did DIY on all this stuff and built it was, basically the big thing was the cost savings of doing it, and just, I actually have a lot of fun doing it as well. I look at it as a challenge, but, I mean, to buy tanks this size, my wife thought I was crazy building them, but I told her, I said, well, I think if I wanted to purchase tanks this size, both of them with stands and everything, which would also mean someone would have to come here and build them because they can't fit up the stairs. I think it'd probably be, you know, $20,000 plus for that. Oh, okay, Mike. Yeah, I've been watching the Boeing, and everything's been looking good there. Yeah, and the second heater thing, I've been very much debating that, because one thing I have on my side is that these tanks will hold their heat really well. So I've had a couple people ask if I'm gonna put electric heaters in and just leave them there, but I I get nervous with those things. I've seen so many bad things happen with them. And while I could have a hot water heater failure or a controller failure or a recirculation pump failure, I mean, they're all fairly either industrial quality or, you know, the hot water tank in your home doesn't fail too often. How much am I topping off a week? I would say it's not very much, surprisingly. Probably 20 to 30 gallons a week. And the main reason for that is because I keep most of my my sumps where the majority of the water agitation is happening are covered. If I did not have those on there, I know my humidity would be well out of control too. Because even taking the tops off for a while, I could feel the difference in that room back there. Yeah, my top off hasn't been bad though in this system. I actually was, before I hooked up this auto top off, I was about once a week topping it off. And that was it. And that's part of the reason I don't want my humidity levels to get too low in that room, because the lower the humidity is, the more moisture is going to get sucked into the air. So if I keep it balanced in the 50-60%. No, I don't have any displays upstairs. I originally wanted to put these upstairs. They're not this size, but I originally wanted to put tanks upstairs, and my wife would not let me drill holes in the floor to put the plumbing in. And I went back and forth with her for about 2 or 3 months trying to fight that, because I was going to put twin 220s or 240s in one of my rooms and then drop it all into one big single system, and no holes in the floor. I could not win. But her exact words were, well, first she said you could go in the basement and do what you know, have your tanks down there. And I said, well, what can I do down in the basement? And her exact words were, I don't care what you do in the basement. So this is what happened. She was not too happy about it, but once it's done, it's done. Yeah. The one thing that I did, you know, she wants the basement finished, but I have been a strong advocate against that, mainly because if I have a flood, it's gonna be really bad, and it's gonna wreck it all. Yeah, so 1600 I felt comfortable maintaining these two tanks. The bad thing is I actually was thinking that, you know, if I wanted to, I could take my garage and insulate it, heat it, put all its own, you know, electrical systems in, and not put cars in it, and I could fit like a multi-thousand gallon tank in there. But I kind of pitched that idea to her a couple weeks ago. I said, well, if I ever outgrow this, I could always do that. She started reaching for my neck with her hand, so I think that was a good indication that I shouldn't do that. No. The one thing too, she never said anything about putting holes in the wall for ventilation. She didn't say I couldn't do that. So Rob, since you like triggers, let me ask you this. What's your thoughts on, do you have an undulated trigger in your tank, or do you even think they're too evil? Yes, Kevin, you extort every one of those loopholes. Yeah, and my thing, I don't mind multiple tanks. My big thing is like what you're saying there, Sean, with all one system. That's how I did you ever sign up? Yeah, it was Joey I actually got to talk to on the Boeing for the 720, because I was on Rico's live stream and happened to talk about it. And I think the most difficult thing for me with that tank was that I knew there was a chance it could happen, but until, you know, I filled it, I didn't know. But, you know, I had an idea to put some other type of bracing on there. He just randomly joined onto the stream and said, no, don't do that. Go with on-edge 2x4s. So yeah, I think it was the night, because I was not in the greatest of moods that day. But yeah, these things happen. They do happen. There was a few other things I tried to watch when I filled this up too, because just the sheer amount of weight. Yeah, but definitely a lot better mood now, Diver. So right now, Kevin, it's just the returns. The plan for wave maker, just float pumps, I want to put two Gyre 250s on this tank on this side. And the idea is I want to blast it all down there so that it keeps that area really agitated a lot for more SPS. It's okay, Kevin. You can ask me questions. But the idea is I want to keep this side of the tank, or this... What's the camera doing? Focus. I want to keep this third of the tank, though, where the bubble coral's at, a fairly light to moderate flow. If I need more water flow, which I'm guessing I will need, I'll put it on the back walls of the tank and just go front to back with it, since it's got so much distance. Hey Al, how are you doing tonight? Oh, I'm glad you like the Tonga branch. I initially wasn't going to go that route, and then when I started picking through it at the store, he just had so many giant pieces of it. And I was just like, heck, a half dozen pieces of this, I could fill most of the tank. Yeah, I think the thing that sold me over with the Tonga here, no, I didn't glue this Tonga together. Not for this tank anyways. I have to look up a snapper. I've never really messed around with those guys too much myself. But the Tonga branch in here actually interlocked really well. And because it's a fairly low and spread out scape, I didn't cement any of that. The big tank, everything got cemented though. Just because it was so tall. Oh yeah, I got a Midas Plenty this week, so I see him in the camera there swimming around. Yeah, and then that's the thing with the shelves. Like, I like putting some shelves and giving it some different heights. You know, my thing is though, you'll notice that the height of the Aquascape, it stops probably about 2/3 of the way up. I'm not going to go any higher, because even my last tank, I put it up almost to the top, and then it's like a few months later you're going, well, I can't really grow corals there, so I got to remove it. So I tried to keep some good height in there for growing. We'll see how it works out. So there's no filter socks in the tank at all right now. I ran them a little bit at the beginning because I've never been a big fan of them. they get dirty so fast, and they could, in my opinion, they could become a really serious problem for nitrates, because they'll become a little nitrate factory without, you know, a whole lot of time just being left there. I put them in so I had the option. And I think what I'm going to do, like, I know that because I've just had the returns in here, there's a lot of detritus on the rocks and just dust that has to get stirred up. So when the days that I start doing that, I might throw some socks in for a couple hours. See what they do. Or if my nitrates keep staying at 0, maybe I'll throw one in just to help give me nitrates in a small dose. The good thing is, though, I am starting to see a little bit of coralline algae in this tank on the shelf. So, quarantine, I go back and forth on that. So, right now, I'm not. I think eventually, I got a 40 breeder. I'm probably going to just put stuff in holding. But, you know, even ick, I mean, like, I've seen a couple of these, you know, these fish on occasion, even in here, they'll flash on the rocks and stuff, and I'm not too concerned about it. Just because unless the fish gets, like, completely covered in it, which at that point my water quality is probably shot anyways, I'm not too concerned about it. But eventually I'll probably start putting fish in a holding tank before they go in, just to make sure that they don't show any signs of something more serious. Gravity feet. Okay, sorry about that. I'm back now, I think. The app on my phone died. You guys see me again? Okay. But yeah, quarantine will definitely be an interesting thing. As far as corals in quarantine, that might also be something I eventually kind of do. But I've had fairly good track records with not getting fish that come in with bad diseases or anything other than some ick, but I don't even worry about that. I truly believe that even if I did this very strict quarantine, that parasites are still going to get in here through something, either through corals or other inverts, marine plants. I mean, there's so many ways it could happen, unfortunately. Yeah, and that's a good way to go too, Kevin. I mean, I hate just dosing stuff sometimes, and I think too, like I talked real early in the stream, I'll probably end up putting a UV sterilizer on here. That's something that I'll probably end up doing. I wasn't going to, but I think I might just pull the trigger and do it. Well, I think the hard thing with meds and quarantine tanks too is I think it's a real balance sometimes with fish, through my experiences, of constantly blasting them with meds. I mean, I think about when I get sick, you know, I don't feel good, I'm already stressed out, and if I got told, well, hey, you can't be in your house, we're going to pull you out of there, and you're going to put you in a quarantine house with PVC pipes for furniture, I'd probably be more upset then. But quarantine's definitely a hot topic, so either way, I mean, people have success and failure with it, so it's like everything else in this hobby. You gotta make your own opinion on it. Ozone scares me a bit, just because I'm in a basement and I've I've just been a little nervous about using ozone. I know some people do it and never have problems with it. I just get a little nervous about it though. Especially since I'm in this enclosed environment a lot. But I think between the refuge and then if I throw, I mean, you know, I've heard a lot of talk with the UV sterilizers. They see a lot of water. They're clear water just through those as well. So, like I said, I'll probably go that route. Because I'd actually like to try and make a phytoplankton / zooplankton reactor at some point. That's like a continuous feed of tank system water into the cultures, but knowing that you need to have sterile water to go into those cultures, what I want to do is run it through a good mechanical filter pad, run it through the UV, and then part of the UV split it off, excuse me, and then go into the phytoplankton reactor. So I'll probably try something like that one day. Yeah, and I've used UV sterilizers before on, of all things, my freshwater African cichlid tanks I used to keep. I love keeping a little sterilizer on there. Dosing is going to start with just 2-part. I have dosed alkalinity one time. I let it go down to about 8.0, and I gave it one dose to get it back up to about 8.3, but my calcium's still really high, so I wanna let that kind of get down to a little bit more of a balanced level, and then I'll start doing 2-part for now. But early next year, the plan is to get a calcium reactor on the system, because 2-part's going to be ridiculously expensive to try and keep up with this. Reverse osmosis water with the UV and never had issues. Yeah, because I think even with the dry stuff, I know I've seen, like, I think it's Randy Holmes Farley on Reef to Reef has talked about it. Because even I've thrown it out on there, and everybody's basically said, you know, the calcium reactor is a big initial investment, but operating costs are relatively low. Whereas 2-part dosing, you know, it's a more expensive route, and you just have to dose so much of it. You know, I'm gonna probably be in. I would almost assume that when this tank gets fully going, and then if I put stuff in the other tank, I might end up dosing, you know, cups per day, and that is going to become very expensive very quickly. Yeah, so Rob, are you just going with a stainless steel 2-stage reactor or regulator? Because I've been really interested in that carbon dose. A lot of people have been talking about those. If I was going to go with a 2-stage regulator, though, I'd probably build my own, though, just because they're so expensive. And I'm guessing that you're saying German, that's being, or shipped from Germany. I'm guessing that's going to be one of the expensive regulators. Sorry, I keep looking over at my laptop here to see if I'm missing any chats. Plans for livestock? Well, I'm definitely going to be anemones. Anemones is a good question. So I'm hoping to get my hands on a Colorado sunburst. I have a good friend that does get them occasionally, and I really want to get one of those to put into the reef tank, probably on one of the little rock islands here to kind of keep it contained. I have been contemplating in the 720 gallon tank putting in a Ritteri, just because they get so big, and I think like that big shelf that I have in the middle of the 720 gallon tank, like a big 2 or 3 foot anemone with a bunch of clowns in it, would be really cool. Plus I kind of need them so that like the triggers and the puffers and everything else doesn't attack the crap out of it and try to eat it. But I'm contemplating that in there. So, but yeah, I definitely want to get some anemones. I won't get a carpet though. Okay. Okay, thanks, Rob. So yeah, is it a stainless steel 2-stage regulator that you're getting from that German company? That's what I'm interested to know, just the type on it. I would show you guys the 720 gallon tank too, but I got the lights going off early because I have a project I'm working on in the background. I'm actually gonna make a write-up and an article on, but I don't want to talk about it yet because I can't really document it until I can. I don't want to really talk about it, but there will be something coming up in the next few weeks, I'm hoping. So that should be interesting for everybody, because I think it's something that doesn't get discussed a lot in the hobby. It'll be really interesting. So stay tuned for that as well. And then tomorrow I'm dropping the Halloween special video. Yeah, no, the video that's dropping at 7 a.m. Tomorrow, I'm really proud of it. It's only 3 minutes long, but I really had a lot of fun creating it. So, and it's got a great Halloween theme on it too. So let me throw this question out here. Is there any fish you don't think I should get for my tanks? Questions. Oh, come on, there's some fish I'd say I wouldn't put in here. I could rule out, I'm not getting a black tip reef shark. We're not doing that. And it's funny because my local fish store here, Reef Plus, had actually told me, he sends me pictures when he goes to the wholesaler. Yeah. No, I think as far as fish size go, the max I'm looking is maybe about a 12-inch fish. I don't know if I'll put any triggers into the reef tank. Oh, the follower tank? I wonder, were you trying to, instead of saying follower tank, were you trying to say fish only tank? Okay. I'll have to look at that. Thanks for that info, Rob. I'll have to look at that, see what that one looks like. Don't get fish that only hide. Yeah, that's gonna be I try not to do that. Luckily, most of my aquascaping, I think, is fairly open, although I have on occasion I have a fish that I have no idea where the heck it's gone. And I get kind of surprised because I go, well, it's got to be somewhere in here, and it's not on the floor, so where to go? But yeah, the one I'd like to get, although I'm a little worried that that'll happen, is I'd like to get a goby pistol shrimp, but I have the feeling that that's gonna find it in the skimmer. Well, if they go in the skimmer, they're going to be in for a really wild ride. The funny thing is, if something actually did make it in, it has a survivability chance in the skimmer because I do have intake cages on both of the pumps, both the needle wheel pumps that are on there, and it could theoretically make it through the skimmer into the sump tank, and then its biggest problem then would be the return pump. Yeah, if something makes it into the skimmer and is living in there, I'll be shocked. I almost though wouldn't throw it past like something getting in that 3-inch drain tube. So let's go back and talk about the skimmer a little bit more. So nutrient export, I'm going to rely mainly on the refugium tank. I'll do some little water changes here, but I've never been a really big proponent of dosing things like the carbon dosing. I've never done that kind of stuff, and I usually find if there's a reason that that's needed, there's probably a natural way to achieve the same thing. Alright, let's flip this around. So the protein skimmer has been doing pretty good. The only thing I've had a little issue with is just getting the water level to the height I want it. Climb up here, let's see what we're doing right now. Oh, we got some skimmate climbing the side here. I think the only thing that was giving me a little bit of an issue is just the water height, and then I added a second pump so I have a lot more air injection. I also increased the air intake to, instead of it, I had a 1/2-inch line on there, I now have a full 1-inch piece of PVC for the venturi for the air draw, so I could draw more air in. And then I've been increasing the height here. Oh, I really do love queen triggers, Rob, man. Those things get enormous though, and I remember we had one in the store I worked at, and it was actually, it looked like it had a set of human teeth on it, and I was afraid to stick my hand in there because I thought I might lose a finger. But overall, I think the skimmer is working pretty well. The only thing, I think this diameter on here being 8-inch definitely makes it a little bit more, it makes it a little more difficult on it, just because the air getting pushed up has a bigger space to move through. And the only other thing is just the water height in here. I'd like to be able to get it up higher, but you know, the hard thing is now I just don't have a lot of bio load in here, and while I want to keep playing around with it, I have to get a good balance with the gravity feed system. And the only way I could raise the water height more from what I'm seeing now is I'd have to lower the skimmer, which I might do it because it is on a platform down there. I just don't remember how much clearance I had from the bottom of this tank to the stand to see how much could be trimmed off. Because if I could gain about 2 inches, it'll make a huge difference in how much skimmate this thing could really throw out. But we'll see. I'm gonna keep playing with it, see what it does, but I'm happy with it overall. Does anyone else have questions on the skimmer at all? So the diameter of the body with this one it's not as big of an issue because I need the water level up higher anyways. You know, obviously if the water level's down here, it's going to be very difficult to fill this giant space with foam and then move it upwards. But I mean, I like this size tank because the way I see this is you can see the bubbles working up here, but this tank is even, you know, it's a wide tank, and having a bigger base on the chamber I feel helps with allowing the water to kind of keep the bubbles up a little higher so that they're not all getting sprayed into the sump as micro bubbles. You know, and if I didn't gravity feed this, it wouldn't be a problem. And the neck diameter, you know, I went with 8" because I felt that was like reasonable. I probably could have gone 6 and been doing good. I'll have to look and see what your 3,000 capacity. Because that's kind of where I look at it with this, is that I basically took a skimmer that was rated for a moderate bio load on 1,500 gallons and supersized it to make this thing. It's very loosely based on a Reef octopus skimmer. I'll have to check it out, Rob. But I'm happy with it. It was a heck of a lot cheaper to have this than to buy one. Right now there's maybe about $1,000 into this skimmer, and to buy something retail for this I can pretty much guarantee would have been in the $2,000 to $4,000 range probably. I mean, when it comes down to it, the fuge. Well, here's the fuge, and it's basic, just 150 gallon tank in line. That's it. I'll reverse it, Kevin. I'll start asking you questions. I will say the floodlights I got for this though have been working pretty good so far. I had one boo-boo on this light happen where the glass in it shattered, but when I took it apart, the way it had been screwed together, they had like pinched it down really hard, so I just cut a new piece of glass and threw it on there. But I mean, these lights are in the 5500K to 6500K range, and they're perfect for growing algae. I've never been, well, I know those red lights work really well. I've just never been a proponent of them because I like to look at my macroalgae, and I want to see the colors in it. As far as the rest of the design on here, though, it's got about 1,500 gallons per hour, well, 12 to 1,500 gallons per hour going through it. I have one of those, let's see if I can, you guys can't really see it. Do it from the top. I have one of these H2O overflows on here, and I bought one of those as a trial to see if I wanted to put those onto the main displays, but I just didn't want to drop the cash on another half dozen of those, so that's why I made my DIY ones. But I keep it simple in here. There's a single MP40 on here that is cranked up all the way, so I keep really high water flow in here too. Eventually I'll probably add some dead rock, and maybe on occasion one or two little pieces of live rock, but that's pretty much it on here. Nice and simple. Now I'll add more species of macroalgae here once some other cool stuff becomes available. But the pods are loving it. Try to see how close I can get and still get focus. Hope that answers your question, Ryan, on the Fuge design. Put my cover back up here. Fish aggression. That's a good question. Well, there's a few things with fish aggression I like to look at. It depends on the situation to me. Let me swing over here. Honestly, if you're gonna have aggression issues, generally I try to eliminate them before they start if I can. Like when I threw all the Royal Grammas in here, and you know, these fish, they generally get along, but they'll roughhouse a little with each other on occasion. I think a lot of it comes down to space and really having a plan when it comes to adding your fish. Like, I added the single blue tang, and then in my 720 gallon tank, I threw one angel in there, the flame angel. Now, to combat aggression, when I put more angels in there, I'm going to probably try to add like 3 at once and hopefully spread it out. But if you get someone that's just being a real pain in the butt, I have gone to a few different options over the years. One, you could put them in jail, either through an acclimation box, or I have even gone as far in older tanks to put tank dividers in made of acrylic or plexiglass that like divide the fish into like a third or a quarter of the tank and leave them in jail for a week to let the other ones establish. Or, you know, if you're just going to remove them, toss them in another tank, leave them there for a week or two. Their memories aren't perfect, and it'll give other fish time to establish. Ultimately, though, if you if they just won't relent, you'll have to make a choice. Yeah, and I think the aggression curbing, you really got to be careful in how you pick your fish. Yeah, and that's always been my thing, is just look at what you're adding to your tank. You know, like I started off with the Royal Grammas. These guys don't care about anybody for the most part. I mean, it's kind of funny, the cigar wrasse, which I think he went to sleep now. When I threw him in here, yeah, angels could be interesting with mixing with other fish. Because some of them, even my flame angel's been a real pain in the butt to a couple of the wrasses, but I think with them very much it's which ones go in when, because some of them are real nasty buggers. But you know, like just get back to these Royal Grammas real quick. You know, they go up to my wrasses sometimes, and they'll hang their mouth open and like push up against them almost, and the wrasse just kind of is like, what are you doing, dude? I don't care. Yeah, everybody in here seems to be getting along pretty good. My main concerns usually with aggression, tangs, wrasses, those are some of the big ones that you really gotta watch. Angelfish are another one. Triggers, I think those, it's just which one. I mean, it was Rob, you said you had all the triggers. The one I always looked at as being the most evil fish in the world was a undulated trigger. I mean, those things are evil. They are pure evil. This guy's just jamming in the current. He loves it. But yeah, it all comes down to just making good selections as you can, and then, you know, the size of your tank's going to really dictate that as well. The one nice advantage that you have with larger tanks is that the fish get spread out a little better, so it's not a guarantee they won't get attacked, but it helps. What other questions you got, Kevin? You got to have more. Yeah. So, that's a good point there. Like experimenting with angels and coral. Never been a fan of the Banggai Cardinals? Who doesn't like the Banggai Cardinals, Kevin? Come on. Like a staple. It's like bread and butter in your tank. Gotta have them. And if they're breeding, you know your tank's doing well. I don't have a controller yet, Ryan. There is one that's going to be inbound. Algae scrubber. I'm not going to put an algae scrubber in just because that refuge tank's going to serve the same purpose. Angels in a reef, though, that's one of the big reasons there's two tanks here. I know there's a lot of folks out there that have great success keeping angels in reef tanks, but I have pretty much just accepted the fact that it's like a 50-50 shot with a lot of them, and some of them it's worse odds than that they're going to eat or pick at corals. And one of my really good friends that's been in this hobby longer than me, and I really respect, his thing on angel, he won't do it at all, just because he goes, well, people say they don't see the angels picking at their corals when they're home and they're watching the tank, but the fact is that your fish will behave differently sometimes when people are present, and they might have totally different behaviors when you're not around. Even picking every now and then at stuff could, annoy things and make them grow a little slower, or, just make them weaker. That's why I'm just not going to even bother putting any in to this tank. I throw them in the big tank, and when I throw corals in there eventually, I mean, they're open season. If something's going to eat them, it's going to eat them. Yeah, and it, as I said, you go on the forums and a ton of people get a lobster. The only thing with those is that they're really cool looking, but they never come out. I mean, they just dig a hole and they just sit there. I'd rather get some other more interesting inverts than that. Does it come out, Kevin? During the day or during the night? The only time I've ever seen them, I've never seen one like walking around. What kind is it, Kevin? Yeah. Well, huh. I don't know, maybe I'll try one, Kevin. Maybe you're convincing me. There's a cool little like pink and purple one at the store. But if he destroys things, I'm gonna have to ask you some more questions there, Kevin. Yeah, the Flame Angels too, like anything, they're 50-50. Some people have had them, never had a problem, and then other people have had horror stories. Red with blue spiny things on the claws. That's very scientific, spiny things. I like that. Yeah, if you just have anemones, the one thing, I mean, you might get them picking at that every now and then, but I think you're gonna probably, I mean, it's usually more corals. I know LPS are a favorite among a lot of angels. Usually your most expensive LPS corals too, is what everyone always tells me. It's something though, you could always try it and watch them, and if they don't bother anything and they're a model citizen, I mean, go for it. It's definitely something you could do. I just don't like taking the chances usually, especially in this tank. I mean, catching fish out of this system will not be a fun experience, and I think a lot of times I'm just not even going to be able to do it. Yeah, so I will get a calcium reactor on here eventually. So that is coming. I'm gonna two-part it for now, just because there's just not a lot in here, and I just want to let it build up. Plus, I gotta save up a little extra for a calcium reactor. DIY calcium reactor. I've toyed around with that idea, but I think cost-wise, it's not that far off. Who would I purchase coral from online? There's a lot of places I probably would. I'm trying to think. I think it's Elegant Corals. There's a guy here in Chicago. I think that's his name, Elegant Corals. He comes on the live streams. He's got some nice stuff. I've seen Cherry Corals. I'd probably get stuff from them for sure. I've done a lot of business with them in the past. There's so many good vendors out there. I mean, Worldwide's always got a good reputation. There's a guy north of me called Battle Corals that's just up in Wisconsin that he's got some really crazy stuff. Oh, how much is my electric bill? It's up a little bit. But the thing is, my, well, yeah, of course I'm going to buy, I got to ask for online. I am going to buy a ton of stuff from my local fish store. I mean, I'm in there once or twice a week. So, and surprisingly in the Chicagoland area, at least where I'm at, there are not a lot of stores. And luckily the one that's really, you know, close by, Reef Plus, he's got a nice little shop there, and friendly and stuff, and he gets all the stuff in that I want to get for the tank, so that works for me. As far as my electric bill goes, it has gone up, but electricity here is pretty cheap, and actually most of my stuff, when I look at the bill or the annual statement I get from the power company, a good chunk of mine's renewable. There's a ton of wind power out a little further west from me, so it's not too expensive. And they'll definitely have more talks on that too once I get a little bit more going, because I got probably going to be a multi-video series on emergency power and backup stuff and plans and what you should be doing with that. Frags or colonies, I think I'm going to probably start mostly with frags. I enjoy watching everything grow. I mean, certain things like the bubble coral, that was a little bit bigger, but you know, some corals you gotta buy them bigger. But stuff that could be fragged up and stuff, I think I'd rather just get a small piece. Couple of reasons. One, the growth patterns of the coral tend to change depending on the conditions of the tank and the water flow and lighting. And you know, if you get a big colony that might have been doing great in someone's tank, you could toss it into yours and the conditions aren't the same. And you know, if I bought a big colony or someone gave me one, I'd probably just smash it up anyways and, you know, toss a few frags in and see how they do. I'm going to try and hold to my one thing here, though, is that you are not going to see frag trays in this tanks. I don't like frag trays in tanks. Am I going to sell corals? No. So I have found out several times in my life so far that turning hobbies into something that's a business makes me not like that hobby anymore. The way I will handle corals once I start getting them large is I will probably have my local fish store come over here, or some of the guys I know that are that have online businesses, and I will probably sell to them wholesale and let them put it up on their sites, because I really don't want to deal with shipping, and it's just too much. I want to keep it as a fun hobby. But I know on occasion, like if someone came over or something, they just wanted to get something one day, if someone was local, I'd probably give them a few things or sell them something or make a trade. But I don't want to make a business out of it. Well, thanks for stopping by, Rob. Appreciate your viewership. Make sure you check out tomorrow morning's video. So, yeah, there's definitely a lot that's still got to happen with this system, and yeah, and that's really my thing, Kevin, is that like when I was really into fishing, and like I started making my own fishing lures, and I was like, hey, I make a nice lure, it worked, and I was like, well, I'll sell them. And then, you know, it's like now I took something that was joyful, and now I'm like trying to figure in costs and, you know, profitability and all that, and it's just, it sucks the fun out of it, and it adds a lot of stress too, because it's one thing to keep a tank and then have it one day, you know, not that I want it to ever happen, but you have a crash or something dies, and now you're stressed out because now you can't support customers that want to buy stuff from you. It's just, it'd be a whole second job, and I'm not going to end my career to do that, to start up that kind of business at least. And I like to support, you know, the local stores and other businesses that are doing it already. They do a good job with it. There's a lot of great folks out there. But yeah, I can't wait to start getting some corals in here. My wife keeps coming down and looking at it. So she keeps saying, I want there to be corals in it for it to be full, and I'm like, well, we're gonna get there. It's gonna take some time though. So I'll talk a bit about backups and stuff. So because of the industry that I work uh, in wireless telecommunications, the loss of power at a networking facility is not an option. You cannot allow it to happen. And literally, there are battery systems that will power an entire building, like megawatts of energy and battery backup that'll last like 4 hours, and then multiple megawatt generators with backup systems, A and B power feeds. It just, the level of redundancy in the industry I'm in is just ridiculously high, and I try to take the best elements of that and incorporate it into my tanks. So there's definitely going to be, I have a generator for this. I keep multiple circuits for my tanks. Yeah, they're data centers. It's a switching facilities is what I've worked in. So the biggest thing that I look at when you try to back things up, and this is going off of the industry that I'm been in and worked with in all these years, is that you have to have, when you look at backups, you have to have a plan, and you have to look at the reliability. Now, solar could be an option, but can you guarantee that it will always be available to you? And the answer is no. For most people, that will not be possible unless you're in like Las Vegas or some area that's got sunshine 300 days of the year. Batteries, while batteries are a viable option, and I think they're a good short-term backup, I would not rely on that 100%. And the reason I say that is because even though we use them in our industry, like, you go to battery power, you are really in trouble. Like, you are in a serious situation. Your best thing you could do is have a backup generator. I got a generator transfer switch I installed in for power to give me redundancy on things like my furnace, the aquarium, obviously, and a few other things in the house. And it's a propane generator, so it'll use a grill tank. And I think at a 50% load, it gives you like 8 to 12 hours. It's manual transfer. I don't lose power enough here to justify the cost of an auto transfer. If you live in an area where you lose power a lot, though, that is something that I would highly recommend. And I would suggest, do not, well, I wouldn't say do not, but I would highly recommend that you look at either a natural gas solution or a propane solution as opposed to gasoline. And diesel, while it is an option, there's a lot of regulations that could go into that as well. So natural gas and propane are the ways I'd go, and I even lean more into propane just because I think it was the 2003 blackout. I was living in Detroit at the time. We lost water, natural gas, and electricity for a week. So propane and natural gas versus gasoline, the biggest thing you have to worry about with gasoline is gasoline goes bad. And if you got a generator that is sitting for most of the year, and I know you can do fuel additives and things like that, but you still have to do fuel maintenance. Whereas my generator is a propane generator, there is no fuel maintenance. Propane does not go bad, at least as far as I know it doesn't. It's relatively easy to get a hold of, and if you gotta start it up, all you gotta do is make sure you got oil in the crankcase of the generator. You can hook up the tank, and like the one I got takes grill tanks. You get desperate in a long-term power outage, it might be easier to find propane. It does burn cleaner, and then you could probably barter with your neighbors to get their grill propane tanks. if you're in a desperate situation. But I also think too, you gotta have plans beyond that. When I make the videos on this, a lot of what I'm going to focus on is talking specifically about your plan. Like, if I lose power, what am I going to do? And more importantly is, if I lose power, who's going to be home? I might not be home. If my wife's home, or someone's watching the house, or even my local fish store gets called in for an emergency, do I have a plan in place that's easy to follow and buys me time? Because your biggest enemy with this is time. When you lose power in a system, no matter what size, the very first thing you need to do is maintain oxygen above anything else, even temperature. You gotta keep oxygen in the system, and you gotta have a method for it. Well, and Kevin, then you're going to like this video series when I do it, because here's the thing. So yeah, a generator, I look at it the same way. My wife is not going to haul a generator out of the garage to the generator plug, start it up, hook up a or pull it out there, hook it up, put the propane tank on it, do all the transfer stuff with the transfer switch to be done properly. She's not going to do that. I might be able to eventually train her to do it, but on a day like right now, if something happens, she's not doing that. And that is what I want to focus on too, is have a plan that anyone can deal with. I have a dozen battery operated air pumps on order right now. I'm gonna get a tote, a plastic tote. I'm gonna put all those battery operated air pumps in it, batteries, polyfilter pads, the basics. Your wife can't hook up a generator, but you can ask her to put batteries into something, turn it on, have air stones with the hose and rocks on them already, and you should be able to say, look, if something happens, open this tote, grab these air pumps out, throw it in there. Don't worry about anything else. Because those battery-operated air pumps can buy you a lot of time. I mean, technically, you could run for days on that. But you got to keep oxygen in the tank more than anything else. And that gives you time. Time to get someone that can hook up a generator. Or, when a power outage happens, you don't know why. Yeah, and that's where I'm going to have a whole little video series. I might even try to pull my wife into it to say, I'm going to point blank ask her, what do you do if I'm not home and we lose power here? What do you do? And I know right now she's just going to go, I don't know. And then she'll be upset because I see so many stories on the forums where someone went out of town and whoever was watching the tank, something happened. Either they didn't say, hey, just look at this stuff visually every day, or they had it set up in a way that it was complicated. Unless you were familiar with the hobby and the equipment, you couldn't fix it. And that's what you have to think about with these setups. And it doesn't matter if it's this big or if it's, 10 gallons. I mean, you could still get a little plan in place and be ready. That way you buy yourself time. And I think that's an often overlooked aspect of this hobby is emergency planning. Because unfortunately I see it, after these devastating hurricanes came through, and I see these, I feel so bad for people on the forums that, one, their lives have been turned upside down from this hurricane event, but that it just comes back to now you're something else that's your hobby you enjoy. And when I hear someone go, well, I don't even have a battery operated air pump, what do I do? And it's just like, wow. I mean, it's hard to watch that. Yeah, no, I'll have cameras watching this thing eventually. There definitely will be some cameras watching this setup. And that's even another thing, is getting into the setting up a video call with somebody on an emergency basis. Have them point to things, have them show you. You know, this hobby can be very complicated sometimes. Jeez, Rob. Oh, but emergency planning is definitely something that I don't have everything in place already, but um, it's having stuff ready for people in that emergency that they can do simply. Because I know I've seen it on the forums too, where people go, you know, hey, I had my dad watch the tank, and you know, I came home and something in power had tripped and everything was dead, and he just felt devastated that he feels it's his fault my tank died. And you know, having some simple checklist things every day. Hey, go over and look at the tank, make sure it looks okay, smells okay, you see things moving around okay. Throw some pellets or flakes at them. The same thing with feeding. When you go on vacation, I put everything in little baggies for every single day. Because when you tell someone, oh, just give them a pinch, well, that could mean a lot of different things to a lot of different people. And they could throw half the jar of flake food in your tank, or pellets, or whatever you feed when you're out of town, and it's little things like that can put you in a whole lot of hurt. Yeah, and you know, I mean, the thing with that backup power stuff too is you start looking at the cost. I mean, how much money do you have tied up in livestock in your tank? And I mean, for me, a generator and a transfer switch, I mean, I think it cost me about $1,000 to between the two, and then figure battery operated air pumps. I'm gonna get a dozen of them because I want extras, and you know, maybe I'll spend a couple $100 on a little emergency kit or something. But I mean, I don't even want to contemplate how much money would be lost if I lost power and had nothing, and this was a fully stocked reef with fish and coral in both tanks. I mean, the generator makes a lot of sense quick. And Rob, I'd tell you, get some battery operated air pumps as a start. It's a quick thing that anybody could do. And then I would definitely say get a generator. You don't need to get a monster generator. I mean, I think mine is like, it'll do like a 30 amp circuit, 7,500 watts. So you don't need to run everything when you have power outage either. I mean, you got to assess what happened. I mean, if a tornado ripped through your neighborhood and you're not going to have power for a week, that's one thing. Or there's a natural disaster. But if in my home here, I've lost power a handful of times, and I think the longest one's been like 30 minutes. But I cannot gamble with that. Yep, and that's just it. You know, it's easy in this hobby, I think, to get diverted away from things like emergency planning when you're buying livestock, because nobody wants to say, well, hey, you want to buy this beautiful coral or fish, or you want to buy a battery pack or a generator? You know, which one's more fun to you? And the only thing I'll say on just like standard UPS battery backups, and I know some people I've seen do, they'll do car batteries and a string. The one thing I will caution you on that is that batteries need maintenance. They should be load bank tested. If you're trying to have a serious battery backup solution, because batteries go bad. And I get really nervous when I see people do like a few car batteries or something hooked up. I mean, batteries can explode if they're exposed to the wrong conditions with the charger. It's something to keep in mind. I wouldn't do it just because I don't want batteries, a whole bunch of them in an enclosed place in my home. That's why I lean more into. And the other one thing I'll say about batteries as well is that if you're 100% reliant on batteries and you have a long power outage, understand that once those batteries are dead, they're done. You're done. That's the focus. That's probably one of the biggest things, is that if you're 100% reliant on batteries, once they're done, they're done. Yeah. And that's the thing with the exploding batteries. I mean, I watched, I actually, because I do some safety stuff at my work, and I watched some videos online, and if you haven't seen a car battery explode, go and look that up on YouTube, and it is not pretty, and it doesn't take much, because if it starts emitting hydrogen and there's some kind of ignition source, so the whole thing could just explode, and you get battery acid everywhere, and that's not fun. And who wants that in their house? So those are some things to definitely consider, though, when you're talking about backup power. Well, and if here's what I would say on generator, Rob. Like, if you really have to use it a lot, and noise is a real big concern, like, if your neighbors just don't care, like, that you're trying to preserve all this life, I mean, like, to be perfectly honest, like, mine is not the quietest thing in the world, and I'd probably try to, like, not use it much at night if I was in a big outage. But at the same time, if one of my neighbors complains, I'm going to be like, come with me for a minute. And I'm going to take him down, and I'm going to show him my tanks and be like, all this will die if I don't have that running. Could you please give me a break? I mean, I think most reasonable people are going to be understanding. But then if you can't run it at night, you could always go to battery-operated air pumps. Have a secondary backup in place. Well, I think well, Sean, like you're saying there, they shouldn't be able to say anything. Sometimes, though, you know, every place is different, you know. I think most people are probably going to be running generators that they got them anyways, but I don't know. The only other reason I wouldn't want to run one at night is that I don't have to worry about it here, but just growing up in the Metro Detroit area, I could see in a big power outage running a generator at night being a poor idea, because someone would probably steal it. But I don't think I'd have to worry about this. Yeah. Yeah, and it sucks when you have those neighbors. I mean, you can always go for the quiet generator, though, and swing that way and avoid it. So, well, and the thing at night, too, I mean, I'd just be kind of going, well, I'm probably not going to be getting much sleep anyways. So I'll probably be like laying down next to the tank, making sure everything's okay. I mean, I would say for an emergency kit, battery operated air pumps would be a good first line of defense. I would, after watching, I think it was Mr. Saltwater Tank, he had one of his little tips was always keep poly filters around. That's something you could just toss into an emergency kit in case someone's not home or you suspect metal poisoning. But I think the battery operated air pumps is your number one, and then a backup generator of some kind. I think the only battery solution beyond that I would probably consider, although of course it's expensive, would be Tesla sells battery power packs for homes that could power them for like 2 or 3 days. If it's something at that level where it's serviced and maintenance, you know, it gets serviced and it has maintenance, then I could see that being a solution, but that's not a cheap one. I think it all depends too on, you know, your specific area, how often it occurs and stuff. You know, if you are impending, you know, multi-day disaster on a regular basis, or there's a high risk of it, that's where I think like a propane generator could potentially help, just because you could store a few propane tanks. Because the only thing is, you get a widespread power outage, gas pumps aren't going to work. So if you're using gasoline, that's not going to help you. Or straight up on the noise. Yeah. Well, go back to the noise thing. I mean, to be honest, I wouldn't worry about it in my neighborhood, but if it's a concern yours, then by all means go for something quieter. I'll argue with somebody if they want to tell me that I can't run a generator, because I'll be like, all right, well, you just give me the money to cover everything in here that's gonna die because of it, and let me get it on film so that I could put that online. But yeah, emergency planning for sure. Gotta really look at doing that. So there'll definitely be some videos about that. Where was that exhaust that they wanted to put a pipe on it? Or was it like flooding into your home? So, another not ideal but potential thing you could do. Yeah, no, that's for sure. Do not run a generator in your home. Make sure they're outdoors. That's usually that one shouldn't happen very often, but yeah, it still does. Don't run it in your garage either, because just because it's not directly in your home doesn't mean that the fumes can't find their way in. So another option, I've never tried it and I don't know how well it would work. Well, sorry, Rob. That's why if you get battery operated air pumps with just some D cells in them, you don't have to worry about, you shouldn't have to worry about batteries exploding. Big diesel. Yeah, and those big diesels now, I mean, there's a lot of regulation around those too. So if you have one in your home, I don't know what they do because it's a state-by-state regulation. But I know in our industrial stuff, like, we got to make a report every time the thing runs. How long it ran, how much fuel it consumed. And some of the states are really stringent on how often they're allowed to run. So at least you don't have to worry about that, at least with gas. Natural gas, regular gasoline or propane. Yeah, and the only thing with the solar panels though is can they be reliable? If you could say with absolute certainty that solar panels would be more reliable than a generator with a fixed fuel source or batteries, you know, those are the types of questions you really got to look at with it, because what happens if that's all you're relying on and it's like cloudy to the point to where the solar is not giving you enough power? So it's an option that's out there, though. If the right conditions were there, I wouldn't be against it. I think another one, though, is you could get an inverter for your car, and this would not be efficient at all, but for smaller tanks, I think, or a real desperate emergency, you get an inverter in your car and run an extension cord off of it and maybe run one or two little devices off of it. I don't know how much a car inverter can be set up to rate, but it's an option. So what are the questions we got? Got anything else, Kevin, or did I burn you out on questions? Yeah, that's the other thing too. I've never done that, and that would definitely be something you gotta watch. Is you'd have to get something. Well, hey. Yeah, there's definitely, though, a lot of cool stuff that you can do, though, with backups, power, and options. I mean, the solar, I mean, heck, if it works. I mean, heck, I could even see somebody saying I've seen them for camping for, like, cell phone chargers, where they have, like, a little wind, like a portable little wind turbine you could put up. I only have one return pump for this. It's a Reef Hammerhead. It's rated at 6,000 gallons per hour. But there is one more return style pump. How long? I think right now, the way the tanks are set up, with the livestock I have in here, if I lost power, I would probably give myself maybe 4 to 5 hours, I'd say, without doing anything. But if these are fully stocked, I'm going to say that within an hour, something will need to be done, or things are going to start suffering. At least a battery operated air pump. And if I was that concerned on it too, I'd probably have something set up in there automatic. I mean, I might eventually get some kind of little the little battery packs for just the water flow pumps, to give them a little backup time. I've used those in the past, but oh jeez. Yeah, sometimes fish will make it in weird stuff. I remember I had to move or help to move like a 400 gallon acrylic tank, and it had cichlids in it, African cichlids in it, but the guy had like tried to commit an act of arson and burn his own house down. But obviously he like poured gasoline in his closet or something and thought it was, you know, not going to be seen as arson. And the cichlid tank, there was all kinds of soot and everything all over the tank, and there was still freaking cichlids alive in it even after the fire department went through, and like a month later. So sometimes it happens. There's been some weird stuff I've seen out there happen with fish living in weird conditions, so. But that's not ideal. And I think too, fully stocked tank, you gotta be quick to do at least some minimal things. I think if I lost power here, I'd probably, like, the first hour or two, I'd try to find out what's going on and get battery operated air pumps going. And then if it's going to be well, we think it's going to be overnight or several hours, then I'll probably kick on the generator for a while. So my sand bed, I'll probably do a little bit of sand stirring on occasion, but generally my last tank sand bed, I kept sea cucumbers and sand sifting stars, and both do an excellent job of keeping the sand turned over. The sea cucumbers, I do have one. I don't know where he's at right now. He's somewhere in there. I think those are some of the best sand cleaners there are out there. I think they have a really bad reputation. So those are definitely what I'll be adding. I figure in this tank, because it's the only one with sand, I'm thinking probably about a dozen sand stars and maybe a half a dozen or more sea cucumbers. The return pump is a Reef flow hammerhead, and it pumps 6,000 gallons per hour at 0 head pressure, and that's on an 1.5-inch line for the return. And mine has only about 7 feet of head or something on it. I forgot what the flow chart was, but I want to say that it's right around, it's probably somewhere between 4,000 and 5,000 gallons per hour that's actually making it to the tanks. And then I have it split off, so I'll figure 2,000 to 2,500 gallons per hour each tank's getting. And I would say, return pump gallons per hour is not the most important thing. Like, my system, I think it's every 15 to 20 minutes is about what it takes for the water to go through the whole thing. That whole, let's turn it over 10 times an hour through the sump. I mean, there's no way. There's no way I'd be able to do that. I'd have to have some kind of industrial pump. And I just don't see how the skimmer could be effective with that. So I think as long as you're turning over like 2 to 4 times an hour, I mean, heck, even once an hour would probably work, just as long as you got good water turnover. But I like the Reef flow. I've had it on my last system because I was pumping from the basement upstairs, and it worked good. I actually had to put the small impeller in it because it was too powerful with the big one, but this tank could take the full brunt of it. So, but as far as other ones go, I mean, the DC pumps, some of those are real popular. Some of them I don't get, I just don't like them quite as much. I know with like mine, because it's an external pump with a pump seal, once every year or 2 years you're going to probably have a seal failure, so you'll get some water definitely from that. But I have an extra seal. I have another emergency pump hookup to put something on there if I have to. So yeah, 1,600 gallons per hour external for 4 or 5 tanks. It's hard to say because it all depends on how it depends on head pressure and stuff, and then what you feel is comfortable with it. If you don't think it's enough, you could always jump it up to more. But I'd also say that if you have the size plumbing for return that you want, no matter what pump goes on there, if you put it, you could always try putting it on there, and if it's not going to work, then you could always upgrade it. So, as I said, with like the Reef flow hammerhead, just the Reef flow pumps, the only disadvantage is that it's got a seal on it, which has to be replaced. And then I'm thinking what I'm going to do is just buy a second pump and have it sitting on the shelf as a swappable, and maybe once a year I'll swap it out, replace the seal on it, and that way if something happens I got an emergency spare. Because like I know some of those bigger DC pumps, like I want to say like the Red Dragons, and there's a couple of them out there, and they're so expensive. I could buy multiple reflows for that. Miracle Mud, I'm not really thinking I will. I might try it. Yeah, avoiding 5 pumps to your sump, I mean, I could see that. And that's definitely something to consider. I mean, you get that many pumps, it's gonna add up, and then it's just that much more stuff that you have to keep maintenance up on. Back to the Miracle Mud, I don't know. I might throw a tray of it in there or something at one point, but I've never used it. I've seen a ton of tanks that have good success with it. I've just never tried it before, so who knows? Maybe I'll throw it into the refuge one day. Yeah, I know Rico was putting it in there, and I've had a lot of people tell me, just get some and toss it in a tray and put it in, and who knows, maybe I'll do that. I got plenty of room in my sump tanks. I got some places where there's not a lot of agitation, so I keep my options open. But I think the biggest thing with this system is just to kind of get a feel for how it starts to run over time, and start to learn what are good and bad signs with it. So what else has everybody got? Anything else? What? Try to burn his house down. But I've NVR tried. Oh, never tried either one. Okay. Yeah, it's like anything else. If you think it's gonna work, you want to give it a try. So. Yeah, if Rob, you're referring to that guy that I was talking about, the house that we had to pull the tank out of, then yeah, it was kind of funny because they had already done most of the restoration work to the house, but my buddy who was doing, contracted the job out, he said, yeah, the guy just literally had tried to pour gasoline into all his closets and all the house, and it was an old house with plaster walls, so it didn't actually catch the house on fire seriously. It just burned the gasoline and smoked and sooted up the house. So yeah, from what I heard, they charged the guy within a day or two. So, but that's another thing too, is just with all the electrical stuff in the tanks, well, thanks. Yeah, hi, Death Mage. So one of the other things I'll probably talk more about when I do the emergency power stuff too, and I've mentioned on a little bit of the videos, is just general electrical stuff. Make sure at a minimum you should have GFCI on the circuits for your tank, but I did do the AFCI on mine as well, which is an extra layer of protection. Yeah, Death Mage, they've been talking. He's been wanting you to be over there. So glad you could join. Macna. I'm going to see this year because I think Macna's in Las Vegas this year. I might try to go to that one. Yeah, I got family out in Vegas too, so it'd be fun to go down there. It's always a fun place. Said your living room runs through a GFCI. So if the GFCI has been constantly, is it constantly tripping? There could be a few things. One, there's something that's causing a ground fault. But there's also a chance that if it trips a lot, you might want to consider replacing the receptacle or the breaker, however it's set up. Because they aren't guaranteed to work forever. Sometimes they do have a fault. But I think a standard GFCI, it's like 30 milliamps. The Aquarium has two separate 20 amp circuits for it alone. And they're both GFCI, AFCI protected. And all the outlets are above the water line of whatever tank they're over. I didn't put anything low. Which I've seen it in a few builds that people have done that it's always kind of made me wonder. Yeah, I got some new fish. Probably gonna turn the lights out. The poor guys are probably like, why are the lights still on at 12:30 at night? But no, I keep the two circuits running on everything for the tanks. I didn't want to put anything else on there. Is that, Sean, is that one that you got, is the aquarium on it, or is it just the general GFCI popping? So, here, Mage, I'll zoom in, we'll look at some fishies here. Most of them are kind of going to bed, but let's see. The yellow chorus is in here somewhere. You know what's funny, Kevin? That's the same Gatorade I started with. Yeah, if you're popping a GFCI that way and if it's in an apartment, you could probably start to monitor. They do have little monitors on there you can get to see what kind of, if there's any voltage coming through on it. But it can be kind of hard to diagnose. The only thing you could do is really start eliminating one piece of equipment at a time. Or another thing you could do is if you got a multimeter, you could put the probe in it, one probe in the tank and one to ground, and see if you have voltage passing across. So, here's my one coral death mage. So, well, there's the blue tang. So, I'm supposed to see Rico next week because he's going to be at the Chicago Aquatic Experience. So, and then Aaron's Aquarium is going to be up there, so should be meeting him too. We kind of chatted on one of Rico's live stream about him possibly coming out to check out the tanks, but I don't know if he'll have time. So, yeah, matter of fact, I'm going to shut down the lights in here. These guys have been up too long. Yeah, if you got a really old GFCI, I'd probably think about just I think it was kind of a mix of what's on that Tonga. I think most of it's just algae. There might be a little diatom on it, but nothing bad. Now let's see what's going on in here. I think someone just said something about maroon striped clownfish. Gold striped maroons are one of my favorites. I might get some of those eventually. Yeah, and it's just like, well, like right here. So this like whole patch, Kevin, this is all cyano. It's been slowly growing over the last few days, but it's already kind of collapsing. Oh yeah. By the girls, it's pods, pods, pods. So yeah, I got tons and tons of pods in here. And you can't... Trying to see if I can find some of the oddball guys. There's like... Oh yeah, it'll be a display refugium. I just got the red grape, and then this other red macro here. I can't think of the name of them off the top of my head. And then can't really see it all that well, but that one back there. But I'll add more algae to this and stuff. Yeah, I think most of this all came out of the live rock. I would say there's between 30 and 40 species of macroalgae growing in here right now. And I added a couple. I added the Chato and then the grape, but I love watching this tank though. It's when I first got the live rock, I was saying, well, maybe I should buy some pods to just give an extra seating in here, and so, but obviously I don't have to add any pods unless I want some other species to be added. Come on, focus in, little guys. There's actually good sized little pods too. My finger up next to them. Let's see if I can find it in here too. There's always I got some snails and stuff growing in, or living in here too. Where are they? I'm trying to see if I can see it. I do have a few limpet snails in here as well. they came in with a live rock, and they've been growing pretty good. So I'm hoping they'll start breeding in here. So yeah, a few weeks though, hopefully we'll have even more algae in here. And I'll see when I go to the Chicago Aquatic Experience. I don't know if I'll get a chance to do any live streaming there. Maybe I'll throw one up, but I can guess that Rico will probably throw one up, so I'll probably just hop on his. I would highly recommend a mantis tank. As a matter of fact, there's a possibility that a Halloween video that drops in a few hours might be about mantis shrimp. So let me see if I can see mine. Oh, she's in here. Yeah. No, she is. Alright, here. What kind of mantis do you have, Mage? So I just have the one right now, and it's a yellow spear is what I have right now. It's like Suda Squillid, I can't remember the rest of her name, but it's the first spearing mantis I've had, and I gotta say it's pretty interesting shrimp. I've also had the peacock mantis before, so yeah, I mean, even at a 10-gallon, there's a lot of smaller ones. They'd be more than happy on that. Oh, we got purple spot. I have to look on the mantis site and see which one that is. The one that I had on a desktop for like 2 years and I really loved was a little Smith eye, because they try to act really big and tough. So when they like see you, they like hold out their little raptorial appendages and like they kind of display to you like I'm big and bad, even though they're not. So let's see. Let's see if we can get her out. Probably a little too late for her right now. Nope. Not looking like she's coming out. Well, I think it really depends on the mantis shrimp you want to get. There's a lot of small ones that are like 1 to 2 inches that would be fine in a 10-gallon. If you are gonna get like a peacock mantis that's bigger, then I would say you probably like a 20-gallon would probably work. I would probably also recommend, if you're gonna start with one, I'd probably get a smasher as opposed to a spear. The spear mantis, depending on the species, some of them need very deep sand, as opposed to the smashers that like to build little caves. This from here to over here is what my mantis built. She built all of this. And she's got a tunnel running through it. Oh, you could definitely have a lot of success without a refuge. I find the benefits, and the term refuge tank could be kind of really loosely used too, because there isn't a way to, all it is just a place where pods can grow and not have a predator. So I've done dark refugiums before where I literally just threw like 5-10 pounds of rock. It doesn't have to be live rock, it could be dead rock, and just toss it in the sump, and that's your refuge. Yeah, spears will eat fish. Club smashers or clubs can as well, but I have actually kept them successfully with fish before. And sometimes they don't care. But overall though, refuge tank's looking good. Got a lot of nice colors in it. Well, I'll have a little unboxing video too this week, or next week, Kevin. There's a place down in Florida I love to buy macroalgae from, and they got good prices and they got a lot of variety. It's liveplants.com. It's like live-plants.com. They got a really good selection of macroalgae. A lot of them are seasonal, but they do have a really wide selection. And I just got an order from them, and I'd actually say, oh, nice. I'm actually gonna see, like, if I go down to Florida, I might try to hook up with some of those smaller companies, and I really kind of want to see what their operation looks like. I did see on one of their posts, though, they said that after Irma came through, it really had devastated the bottom pretty bad, and they were having some difficulties collecting because there just wasn't anything there. So yeah, I'm sure it'll probably take a while. I know my wife desperately wants a porcupine puffer, and my LFS has been trying to get one, but until he gets one in, my wife's gonna be hounding me to get a porcupine puffer. Puffers are fun. Just gotta not have a reef tank for them. That's all. They like to taste. So yeah, don't. Well, the corals, they might just, you know, sample. It's all your inverts that, you know, they're gonna like to taste those. Like your lobster, I mean, he's gonna go out and have himself a nice dinner, or he might even request a steak to have surf and turf. No, I'm sure your dragon wrasse is interesting though. I've kept juveniles before, but the only thing I don't like about it, they don't look quite as fun to look at when they get older. I know they like to pick things up and put them down. And yeah, I have seen people keep puffers and reefs. That actually, my local fish store, he's got a porcupine puffer about this big in his reef. It leaves all the corals alone, and it hasn't gotten the Sally Lightfoot crab that he has in there. But he's got the biggest Sally Lightfoot crab I've ever seen. I mean, the thing's like that big across. When the first time I saw it, it kind of scared me. And okay, yeah, I'll have to look at one of those, Mage, because I've never seen a big one. If I was gonna do that, I'd put it into the 720. I'm actually gonna have to build, because that's a bare bottom tank. I got a tray in there for my one of my wrasses already, but I think if there's a couple other wrasses I want to get, because I'd really like to get one of those red chorus wrasses. I really love the spotting pattern on them, but they need sand too, so I think I'm going to make a small tray I could put into the back of the tank, and so they can bury themselves. And you got a really well behaved puffer there, Mage. I'm sure if they're well fed, they'll be happy. Yeah. So, it's like anything else. Sometimes, just because the rules on fish are, oh, you can't keep them with this, that doesn't mean that someone hasn't done it. You know, it's funny too, is like, I don't have a dragon wrasse, but that the cigar wrasse that I bought, that they look kind of similar to a peppermint hog, but their red stripes turn yellow. The guy in here, he flips all the shells, and even like rocks up to, like, you know, the size of a $50, he flips them, looking for pods under them. It's just fun to watch all day, just flipping shells. Yeah, that's usually the thing, is that you get a lot of well-fed fish. Just like I've kept mantis shrimp with fish in the tanks before. I mean, if they get a better food supply, they'll much rather do that a lot of times. What kind of trigger you got there, Kevin? Got blue throat or crosshatch or something? Oh yeah, blue throats tend not to really bother inverts. The Niger triggers are the same way, that they have that kind of inverted mouth that's kind of more upward facing. They tend not to be as aggressive to inverts. But if it was like a a clown trigger or a queen trigger, a lot of those, like, that's their natural diet. So if you put them in, they might not eat anything, but you just never know. Well, I agree with you, Mage. I like fish with a lot of personality too, and that's why it's hard to, like, when people ask me what's your favorite fish, it's kind of hard to answer, because it's like, well, I like them all for different reasons. So, and a lot of it has to do with those quirky behaviors. So, alright, well, it is starting to get late here. I think I'm going to wrap up the stream. So, thank you everybody for hopping on. We'll see, maybe next week if I get the chance, we'll do another one. No, it's no problem, Kevin. You guys have a great night, and I'll catch you on the next one. And don't forget to watch tomorrow morning's video, because it'll be a good Halloween special. Have a good night, everybody.